everyone. It is time for my crazy wrap up of May, and some of those will also be April reads because of Eurovisionathon that started partway through the month. So I'm going to include all of my Eurovisionathon ones and then every book I read in May. There are 24 books altogether, so I've got a lot to get through. Excuse the hair, it's a bit messy this morning. Lazy morning. Sophie and Andy have gone to football training, so this is the perfect opportunity for me to do this. Not sure how the lighting's going to go because the window, but we'll see how we go. So I will try and be as descriptive as possible, but as you know, I generally tend to forget details, and 24 books is a lot to remember. So the first book I read was for France, and that was called French Rhapsody, and that was by Antoine Lorraine. This was a contemporary fiction. I gave it 4 stars. It reminded me very much of Daisy Jones and the Six in that it was focusing on a band. Well, it was focusing on a main character. I can't remember his name, no, but I want to say Alain, but I could just be making that up. Basically, he was in a band and the band split up, and they'd never received a recording contract, but then he found a letter that suggested that a recording company were wanting to speak to them. So he went around to the story showed him going to his different bandmates, obviously a lot older now, and the different areas of their life, and him talking to him about this letter. The letter wasn't all it seemed to be, but I won't say any more than that. But it was very short book, but there was a lot packed into it, and it was quite hard hitting in parts of the different aspects of people's lives. So yeah, I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. I was considering another book for France by Antoine Lorraine. I think it was called The Red Notebook, so I definitely want to read that one soon. Next, I read for Denmark, Gone Viking by Helen Russell. I've read The Year of Living Dangerously by her. I'm hoping to read Leap Year in my June TBR. That's a non-fiction. I give it 3 stars. Another contemporary fiction. Basically about two sisters who don't spend much time together, but I think it's the younger sister decides the older sister needs a bit of a break, so they basically go on this like Viking boot camp. It was good. I found it funny in parts. I oh, the idea of going on this boot camp, sleeping outside and doing all the mucky things that they do. I just can't imagine wanting to do that. At one point, they were just poured down with rain and covered in mud, and it just didn't seem like something. It was like part of it was like a bit Bear Gryllish. They were trying to live off the land and things like that, and I just thought, no, that wouldn't be for me. Although I went on so many camping holidays as a child, um, I'm not against going camping and stuff, but I just like my creature comforts now. So yeah, 3 star, okay. Then I read This Changes Everything, yeah, by Helen McGinn. This was for Italy. This reminded me of, if you've ever seen Letters to Juliet or Letters from Juliet or Letters to Juliet, the film with the girl from Mamma Mia who plays Sophie. Can't remember her name, but it reminds me of that idea because in that film, the older lady is going back to find the love of her life. The mum in this story has decided to go to, was it Rome? Yeah, Rome, to meet the love of her life. And her 2 daughters go, because they don't know who this bloke is and they're worried for her, go after her to Rome to find out what happens. And it focuses a lot on the daughters and their lives as well. But yeah, it was, what did I give it? 4 stars, another contemporary fiction. Yeah, and quite a nice length for Eurovisionathon. Next, I read a non-fiction for, I think this one was for Israel, 10% Happier, How I Tamed the Voice in My Head, Reduced Stress Without Losing My Edge, and Found Self-Help That Actually Worked, a True Story. Quite a long title by Dan Harris. He's an American newsreader, and apparently, I haven't watched it on YouTube or anything, but apparently had quite a massive breakdown live on air, where he basically had a massive panic attack and really struggled. And so this is him trying to try different methods of meditation and mindfulness and to try and help with his mental health, and I just found it really interesting. I give it 4 stars. I think it's one that I'm going to keep and probably highlight bits. He goes to different looks at different religions, um, religious sects and things, and people who've talked about mindfulness and how it works with your brain. And yeah, he says it's more about trying to be 10% happier rather than trying to overdo it. So yeah, I found that really interesting. Definitely going to keep and re-highlight. The next one I read was called The Middle Matters by, can't remember her name, and I read it for. Oh, the reason that was Israel's because he was a travelling reporter, so he went to Israel at some point. The Middle Matters I'd used for Ukraine because the woman who wrote this non-fiction originally lived in the Ukraine at one point. Um, I didn't realise this was a Christian book, and that's nothing that necessarily would put me off. I'm a Christian person. However, I was worried it was going to be too much focusing on that, and it wasn't. You know, obviously she mentioned passages from the Bible, like quotes from the Bible at times, and she does talk about God because he's obviously an important person in our life. But it's talking about that middle part of your life where maybe your kids are a bit older and trying to see the positives of it rather than it being, I don't know, I feel like she was trying to hint that women kind of forget themselves a little bit, and that part of your life being grateful for what you've got. And like I said, I can't remember too much about it. I gave it 3 stars. I'd read something by her again. I know she's got a book called Never Unfriended or Never Befriended or something like that, and I love books about friendship, so I'm definitely going to give that one a go. You'll see in a picture that I put up what her name is. Next, I read a middle grade. This was for Norway because Roald Dahl, as a boy, holidayed in Norway many years. Boy Tales of Childhood. I read this in year 7 of high school, so wanted to reread it. Love the scene in the sweet shop with the mouse. I think that's the story that most people remember from this in the middle of it all. I didn't realise that this stops at a certain point and then Going Solo by Roald Dahl is the next book. So Sophie's got the whole collection, so I'm going to read that next. Gave this 4 star. Loved the nostalgia of reading it. Yeah, enjoyed reading about Norway. Next, I read for Malta. Malta at the time that I was doing Eurovisionathon was like the favourite for a long time, so I knew I definitely wanted to read a Malta book. The brothers in this is by Nicholas Sparks and his brother Mika Sparks. Nicholas Sparks did all the books like The Notebook, A What to Remember, Nights in Rodanthe, very popular romantic romance books, I'd say. There's quite a lot of romance in them. This is a non-fiction about them travelling together and getting to know each other better. They've had a lot of hardship in their lives with their parents, etc. And they travel to lots of different places. Sorry, I'm doing it again every time I open the book and think it. So they do go to different places. Let me see if I can tell you where. It's handy to have this catalogue for next Eurovision. I bet it doesn't do it now. No, I'll have to have a quick look. Well, they go to India, but obviously that's not a Eurovision country. Malta. I'm sure like Italy's mentioned in there at some point. Norway is another one. What's this one? Cook Islands, Chile, Peru. Can't find any of the Eurovision ones now. Definitely Norway and Malta, which I used it for. Must be others. Oh well. Anyway, Norway and Malta at least. I gave this 4 star. You know I love travel non-fiction, but I'm sure it's this one where his son was struggling with, it might have been autism, but I'm sure he used another word to describe the sensory condition that his son struggled with. And because he was struggling to speak, there was a point where he put him in a high chair and left, and it sounded like he'd had him in there for hours and wouldn't let him get out until he'd said the word apple. and it just made me feel so uncomfortable. So I can't give it 5 star because that really didn't sit well with me. Um, so yeah, if you ever read this, let me know what you think about that part because I just couldn't go it to 5 stars because that was so uncomfortable to read, and I thought that to me is not what a parent should do. But I don't know what experts to say about that, but I don't think sitting a child in a high chair for hours and hours and hours and not letting them move until they've said a certain word is appropriate. But so that was that one. The rest, and then I read one called The Rest of Their Lives by Jean-Paul Didier-Laurent. This was the first 5 star I gave. It's focuses the main character, one of the main characters works in a as an embalmer, obviously working with dead people. And so that was more than I wanted to read about that situation. Death has always freaked me out since I was a child, to the point where sometimes I couldn't go to sleep and my dad had to, well, sometimes I'd go downstairs and sit with my parents, and particularly my dad was really good with me. And I had to sit downstairs and talk me round till I went to sleep. Sometimes my dad would come and sit on the end of my bed, um, and sit with me and talk to me about things to look forward to, like holidays and things like that, to get me to, finally feel comfortable to go to sleep. So yeah, anything around death, I've never really wanted to read about it particularly. But there was something about this. I mean, if you're uncomfortable with things like that, maybe skipping through the embalmer bits because it's quite descriptive about what happens in funeral homes, etc. Before, why do I keep saying etc. again? Um, before a family comes in and views their loved one. Um, but it's about an old man who asks for the services of this embalmer to come with him and go and bring back his twin brother from Switzerland. I won't say any more than that. But it's quite uplifting in parts, and it's kind of like it ends up being a bit of an ensemble cast. There's about 4 or 5 of them. Um, it was just a lovely story in the end, and I don't think I'll ever forget reading those kind of things. So yeah, 5 star for that one. Then I read for Germany. Oh, that one was for Switzerland. Then I read for Germany, German Calendar No December, which is a graphic novel. I got it in ebook off Scribd. I can't remember whose channel I saw it on. I think it might have been Aoife from Purple Polka Dots. Is that the name of the channel? Um, oh no, no, I don't think it was. I can't remember whose it was, but they'd read it. And so I put it on my list because I had another book for Germany, but I wanted something a bit shorter. Oh, I just didn't really like it. I give it 2 stars. I really wanted to understand why it was called German Calendar No December. And apparently it was a phrase that the person's dad used, but it didn't really make any sense. Um, there was a part where they all worked in this I don't know if it was like a railway station, in like different shops, and the cleaners and things all come together as a cast, and that was quite nice. But I just felt like some of it didn't really make any sense, and I think it needed to be longer to establish those characters, and that's that kind of story. There was a lot of talk about um illegal immigrants and things like that, and how they were all trying to help each other, um, because otherwise they'd end up going back to countries where it was really quite serious, what was happening there. Um, so I didn't want to DNF it, especially as I wanted one for Germany and it was so short, and because I did feel like there was some important topics in there, but at the same time I wanted something that made more sense. Um, then for Sweden, I read The Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend. I gave this 4 star. Anything about bookshops. This is about a woman who goes to this little small town in. She's come from Sweden. Um, she decides to meet. Well, Broken Wheel. I can't remember where it is. I don't know if it's in Iowa or Ohio, or let me try and find out where Broken Wheel is. Or Iowa. Yeah, Iowa. She befriends this lady. I don't know how they become friends, but they write to each other regularly and trade books. And then this old lady asked her to come to Iowa and spend some time with her from Sweden. And so she turns up, but the lady isn't there. And she then comes to know the area and decides to open this bookshop with the old lady's books, and all the town pull together and support her. And yeah, it was just a nice book. And so if you like books about books, then definitely suggest this one. This gave me a feel of a movie that I'd watched on Netflix about a woman who opens a bookshop in a town and nobody really wants it there, and there's a lot of competition, and just people didn't want it there, and in the end I think it ends up getting set on fire. Um and she ends up leaving, and she's a widower, this woman, and this just reminded me a little bit of that. So yeah, I'm no good with knowing what the name of films are and stuff, but yeah, The Readers of Broken Will recommend by Katarina Bivald for Sweden. Let me try and sort the lighting out. Right, there you go. So the next one I read was one called Miss Iceland. I can't remember the name of the person. I'll put it up, but I'd seen another one that I quite fancied as well. I've seen a couple by this author now. One's called Hotel Silence. I can't remember the other one I wanted to try, but you can guarantee I'm going to read some more. I think I got this on ebook. I think it was from Scribd. I gave it 3 stars. I actually genuinely can't remember a lot of what it's about now. Um, I think she's with somebody who's a writer, and she's not really taken seriously. I think they want her to become, is it Miss Iceland? I don't really know, to be honest. I can't remember a lot about this one, which probably says a lot about it, that it didn't stick with me as much. It focuses on her relationship and the struggle of being with somebody who's a writer. But that was 3 stars, so yeah, don't take my word for that one, because I'm just can't remember much about it. The next one was the next 5 star I give was Jack and Bet, and that was by Sarah Butler. And I use this one for Romania because there's a character in it who's Romanian. It's basically about Jack, who every day he walks a particular distance, even though he struggles, to walk past a home. They used to live in a block of flats in this area in London, and he walks past it every day to reminisce, and then he ends up in this cafe, and everybody in this like shopping mall knows who he is and waves to him, and he sits at the same table every day. And this one day there's no tables available, and there's a young girl sat on this table, and he ends up befriending her and sitting and chatting with her. And him and his wife Bet, they live together, but she's ailing as well, so she can't go out very much, and their son wants them to go and live in a home, and they don't want that. So because they've befriended this young photographer, they decide to ask her to come and help in the home a little bit, so the son kind of stops mentioning them going in a home. And it's just Jack and Bet. While I was reading it, I was picturing Jack and Vera from Corrie Street. um it was just a nice story, and yeah, I don't think I'll forget Jack and Bet. So and it's quite heartfelt in parts. There's sad parts in it. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It spoke a lot about older people and how they're treated in society. And there's a lot of mention of, oh, let's just put them in a home. And don't get me wrong, I know that's a difficult decision for families. I've had family members that had to go in homes and things. But there's a difference between somebody needing care in a care home because they can't function at home, etc., etc. Falls and, really needing that 24-hour support, and then younger people who live away and can't get back deciding, well, we'll put them there and they'll be looked after. There's a fine line, but there is a difference. And I know how heartbreaking that can be for families, so no judgment here. The next one I read was The Henna Wars. Again, I can't remember the name of the author, but again, I'll put a picture up. This was a middle grade. I listened to it on Audible. I gave it 4 stars. I did enjoy the audiobook. Love listening to the accents on there. It was set in Ireland. Basically about a girl who decides to do a henna business for a school project. Because that's part of her culture. She wants to really do her business based on that. But then another girl from, let's say, Spanish culture, this is what I'm like. But from a different culture, just likes the art. She's very into art and likes that kind of thing. So she ends up doing it. And because she's got a lot of popular friends, that business takes off more than the girl who it's her actual culture and, part of her heritage almost. So there's quite important discussions to have there. But yeah, 4 stars, really enjoyed it. Will read something else by that author. Then I read the Never Have I Ever Club. Oh, so that one was for Ireland because it was set in Ireland. Then I read the Never Have I Ever Club, which I used for the UK. It was the group book for Eurovisionathon, but I think there was only 2 of us who read it in the end. Everybody just had their own thing going on, and that was fine. I gave this 4 stars. It was about a local community who decided to set up the Never Have I Ever Club. It was like a bucket list thing, and people were trying to achieve things they'd always wanted to achieve, but they did it as groups, and that was quite nice. Um, so yeah, just a nice community feel. Really enjoyed that. Lovely bright yellow cover on that. Yeah. The next one, oh, that was by something Baker. I'll put the picture up. Next, I read Fear in the Cotswolds by Rebecca Tope. I gave this 3 stars. It was a thriller. I work in a library and I see it all the time. People bringing back Rebecca Tope books. She does a lot of series. In particular, this one is obviously the Cotswolds series, but this was book 6, I think, in the series. You can read them alone, but I think I want to go back and read them in order. It's basically about a woman who's a house sitter, and there's always murders around where she house sits. Uh, so yeah, definitely want to go back and read that. But I give it 3 stars because I think I remember getting to the end and being really disappointed by the end. And I don't want that in a thriller. I want there to be twists and turns and get to the end and think, wow. And this wasn't that, but I did like the build up. So 3 stars. Then I read a non-fiction called The Camino by Shirley MacLaine. I love watching the BBC programmes about well-known people going on pilgrimages. In fact, there was one from 2016 that featured Ed Byrne, Debbie McGee, JJ Chambers. Um, just there was about 6 or 7 of them, and I thought we'd seen them all because there's one that goes to France, I think, and one that goes to one that goes to Rome and one that goes to Spain, and I thought we'd seen them all, but they're replaying one at the well, they've recently replayed one, and because somebody came into the library to ask me for a biography by Les Dennis because they'd watched that programme and that's how they remembered that they wanted to read it. And then I looked online for it to find out which, because she couldn't remember the name of the person, and then I spotted that Les Dennis had been there and she said, yeah, that's him. But while I was on there, I spotted that there was another one with Debbie McGee and I knew I hadn't watched that one. So me and Andy have just finished watching it. It was 3 episodes and it's just really interesting because, there's people of different religions going. Some people have got no religion, and it's about them talking about what they hope to achieve from going on this pilgrimage and how the feelings have changed. So I'm obsessed with reading about it, and I've got this one by Shirley MacLaine, so I thought I'd give it a go. So obviously I use this one for Spain. Shirley MacLaine is very much a spiritual person. She actually believes in UFOs. She believes in fairies. She believes in angels. So part of this was like reading a fiction book because there was a lot of story, a lot of the funny dreams that she was having while she was on the Camino. She was sometimes thinking they were very real. It was just a very interesting read. I gave it 3 stars because I'm not sure I went along with most of it, but I enjoyed the bits in between where she's actually on the Camino and meeting people, and that's the bit I want to read about. So if you are interested in the Camino or pilgrimages in general, then definitely worth a go. Then I read a book called Nanny Wanted, which I used for Australia because it was set in Australia. I can't remember the name of the person, but I'll put the picture up when I find out. This is actually a Lilford romance book, but my copy from my library very much looked like a self-published version that they'd ordered in. So I didn't realise it was that till I'd finished. Not that it does stop me from reading it. I gave this 3 stars. It was okay. I liked the characters. It was interesting because it focused on a male nanny, which you don't get very often. Yeah, there's not really much to say about it. I ended up using it for Australia, and Australia didn't make it to the Eurovision. Neither did Ireland, and I'd read a book for them. Neither did Romania, and that was my favourite book of the Eurovisionathon, so a few of mine went out. Um, so yeah, used that for Australia. It was all right. Managed to scrape it in as the 150 because the copy I had was just over 150 pages. I think it was like 152, 153. So that fit. So yeah, not much to say about that. Then I listened to an audio book. I think it was it on Script or BorrowBox from a library? I can't remember. Never Drive a Hatchback to Austria by, can't remember his name, put the picture up here. Oh, I will love non-fiction travel, but I was so bored by this book. I think I must have been listening to it for a whole week because I was using it in my commute to work, but at the same time, I think Sophie was off a couple of days that week because of, I think one of the days was a bank holiday, another day was that her school was used as a election school, so you could go and vote in there. So they were off for the day, and so I didn't get to listen to it as many days in a row as I could. But it was just so boring. Um, there was a few countries mentioned. I'm pretty sure Slovenia was mentioned in there, so it could be used for that. Obviously, Austria could be used. I used it for, I want to say Cyprus, because Cyprus was mentioned in there and I needed Cyprus at the time. But I can't recommend this book because it was so boring. He spent most of his time talking about different flat shares he was having with people, and it was just boring. The next one I read was The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. The 100 Craziest Moments from the Eurovision Song Contest. Pretty much every country is mentioned in this, so you could use it. I used this one for, I can't remember, Azerbaijan? Azerbaijan? I can't remember. Um, but I just enjoyed going back through the years and, some of the moments that I didn't remember. Some were from the year I was born. Some I definitely did remember. Um, just pretty fitting for this readathon, and I thought it's handy to have some like this for when it got to the semi-finals week and it was like certain countries had gone out and you needed to read certain countries. I thought, well, these are quite handy to be able to use for any country. I gave this 4 stars. Yeah, if you're taking part in Eurovisionathon next time, keep this in mind. Then we buddy read, I think there was 5 or 6 of us in the end. Me and Mel from a book fiend named Mel had agreed to do a buddy read, and I said to her, do you fancy me putting it up on the Eurovisionathon Twitter page and asking anybody else if they've got it for the Netherlands, because this is what we were reading it for. We could all read it together. She said, yeah, of course. So 5 or 6 of us read it. I think we read approximately 50 pages a day. Really did enjoy this one. The build up, that it was quite, what's the word? Oh, what is the word? Gothic. This was the kind of gothic that I was hoping to get from Northanger Abbey when I read that last month, and I didn't get it. This was the kind of gothic. It was quite eerie in parts. You've got this young girl who turns up at the house of her now husband, and he's not even there, and she meets up with the sister and the housekeeper, and at first they're not very friendly with her at all, particularly the sister. And you just see this young girl trying to come to grips with being the woman of the house, although she doesn't really take control because the sister totally does that. And her husband doesn't make much time for her, but he gives her this dollhouse. And then so she gets in touch with this miniaturist to come up with like the furniture and things for it. But instead of just sending the things she's asked for, this miniature starts sending her um little miniatures of the people who live there, and then different things that are to do with what's going on in the house, even though obviously the miniaturist doesn't live in the house. It's just quite spooky. But I will say this, the reason I give it 3 stars is because you get to the end and it's such a letdown. I don't even know why it was called the miniaturist, because by the end of it you don't really get a feel for that person. And if you read it, let me know. I loved the build up. I really thought this could be a 5 star read, and then it just fizzled out. So I had a couple of books like this. Like I said, the Rebecca Tote one was another one like that. This is by Jessie Burton. Loved The Confession. Hoping to read The Muse first, and I would read other books by her, but yeah, that ended. So this was for the Netherlands. Then I read another Eurovision based book that I could use for any country. This might have been Azerbaijan. One of them I read for Lithuania and one of them I read for Azerbaijan. I think this one was Azerbaijan. This is a Baby Bollinger murder mystery of my dead body, Murder at Eurovision by Christopher Fisher. This was focusing on the year that Bonnie Tyler represented us, and basically it's what it says on the front. A murder happens and it's focusing on that. This is the second in this series. There hasn't been any more written first, but there's another one. These are self-published, so, and I got it off Amazon. So when I'm taking part in the India Codes Readathon in July, where you've got to read as many independently written books as possible, I will be picking up the first one because I did enjoy this. I gave it 3 stars just because it was a bit, the way it was written, it was a bit convenient in parts. Sometimes it didn't make a lot of sense, but I would like to read another one. I just love murder mysteries. So yeah, the fact that it was set in Eurovision was perfect. And again, a lot of countries were mentioned, so you could use it for that. So it just got me into those feels. Again, in that last week, it was perfect to pick countries that I needed to get read. Then I read one called The Summer House. Can't remember the author. We'll put the picture here. I read this one for Finland. I gave it 4 stars because I remember liking it, but I can't remember a lot about it. This family goes to stay in this summer house in Finland, and the parents end up befriending people who live at a house nearby, but they like smoking weed and do it. Just a bit of a weird book. But I just remember liking it at the time and giving it 4 stars, but I can't tell you a lot about it. It had a beautiful cover, like pastel muted colours. Yeah, but it's all around this summer house and what happens there. Um, the daughter of this house hangs around with a lad from the other house, and it's like a coming of age story in parts as well. Um, yeah, but I can't remember a whole lot other about it. It's more about the relationships. Um, Sorry, can't tell you much more. Then I read for Ally-A-Thon. I'm calling it Ally-A-Thon now. I did a whole reading vlog about Ally-A-Thon and called it Ally-A-Thon, and it's just because of how it's written, and I don't know why, because obviously the whole point of the readathon is to be a good ally. So the first theme they've picked for that is around the Muslim community. And so they picked the book Once Upon a Need to Read. It's a middle grade book, it's short stories, and it's focusing all around Ramadan and Eid and those celebrations and people from the Muslim community and the experiences they have with family and friends and local society. And I love this book so much. And I think I loved it even more because of this readathon where we were reading sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 stories in a session together live on YouTube and then having discussions with the 4 hosts. Well, sometimes it was 3 hosts because of who could make it, and when they were all together, obviously 4 hosts. Just loved it. Found out about it from Paperback Moore's channel. So go onto his channel and you can find all the past videos. I've sat and watched through them all. I think I made one live and then I couldn't make the other 2 or 3, but I watched them back so I could still join in and include my thoughts. And it's made me want to read outside that, which is the whole point of the readathon. Some people are doing it for the whole month, and there's different prompts to encourage you to read more Muslim themed books based around that religion and the different pillars of that religion. But there's the option to read the group book, and then there's different articles online. I think they call it Notion, which is where it's all pulled together, and you can read. There's different YouTube videos and articles to help you to learn more about that religion. So that's the option I'm going to do. I'm going to read the one book. Well, it's not each month now. I found out from, I think it was Cece from Cece's Reading Journey, who got in touch with me when I said, is this every month? To say it's going to be once a quarter, that they're going to pick a different theme. I know one of the themes they're going to do is LGBTQ+, so I'm looking forward to that one as well. So they'll pick a group book and we'll do that on the live reading sprints. And then outside of that, you can read as many books as you want, or you can read some of the articles to better inform yourself. So yeah, I can't suggest that highly enough, and that book, definitely get it, because it's just little pinches of, to me, magic, because I learned so much from those stories. And Mo himself on the YouTube channel, he is a Muslim, and he said he learnt so much about his religion as well, which it's so important to generate these discussions. We were all able to talk about our religions, or people were talking about lack of religion and, you know, their life and how they'd experienced religion. And it's just important to have these discussions, you know, and they're very much of a, you know, there are questions that people have, and it's the fact that people feel uncomfortable asking that make tensions and things. Were actually, it was a very open space. People could ask questions and receive answers, and yeah, don't be embarrassed to ask, because that's so important. Um, Sorry, I rambled a bit then, but I just feel quite passionate about that. So then the next book I read was The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. It was the last of the Narnia series that I needed to read. I gave this 4 star, really enjoyed it. Um, Sad that not all of the 4 Pevensey children were included in the end. I won't tell you which one or more isn't there. Um, it's about battling for Narnia, because it's basically dying off, and people falsely pretending to be Aslan, and yeah, just it's hard not to see the religious connotations in this book. But if you can step back from that, seeing the links to Christianity, just read it for the story it is, for the middle grade it is. If you're wanting to see those connections, do that too. They're obviously there. Yeah, just this was one of the higher up ones. I think I remember liking The Horse and His Boy as well. I think Prince Caspian I might have given 3. I really didn't enjoy The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Um, so yeah, there you go. Love The Last Battle. Then I buddy read The by Kira Cass with Becca from Becca Fowle and Chloe from Chloe Reads Books. Becca got part way through and decided she didn't want to carry on with this one. She's just going to have the first 3 books as a trilogy and just enjoy them for what they were in the selection series. These are focusing on the next generation from that selection. Can't say too much because I've mentioned characters' names. It'll spoil the earlier ones if you haven't seen them. But I really enjoyed it. Although I gave this one 3 stars, and I think I gave it 4 stars the first time I mentioned it. But I don't know. I think I feel a bit the way Becca does in that 3 was so strong. Um, that I've got such fond memories of them that these ones just aren't as good. But I'm definitely rereading The Crown in June with Chloe. We're carrying on with it, and yeah, looking forward to it. I just enjoy listening to the audio books on Scribd of these. Um, I did read a couple of the first time round I read them. I did read some physically, but mostly I'd rather listen to the audiobooks. Although I do prefer the audiobook narrator of the first 3 books than I do of the second one, but obviously they're going to try and change the voice if they're focusing on a new main character. So yeah, there's that one, the YA, and oh, I've lost. Finland was the last book for Eurovisionathon. Once Upon a Need, The Last Battle of the Year, and the next 2 I mentioned were not Eurovisionathon ones. I actually used these for the Royal Readathon that Becca hosted. So Once Upon a Need I used for book featuring strong women, because there were strong women in those stories. The Last Battle was for a book that's been on my shelf for a long time. The was for read a book featuring a prince. And then the final book that I needed to read was a book that featured a witch. And so the perfect option was the Christmasaurus and the Winter Witch. Becca had kindly gifted this to me. She loved the Christmasaurus and sent me that. And then when I finished it, she sent me this one straight away, because she loves this series so much. So thank you again, Becca. Look at the gorgeous purple sprayed edges. I think I give the first one, the Christmasaurus, 3 stars. I did enjoy it, but because I read a lot of middle grade and there's been some proper powerhouse books that I've read, it didn't reach me as much. But I gave this one 4 stars. I love this one so much more. There was so much involved in it. You know, they're trying to save Christmas, and it's looking like Christmas could just go altogether. In fact, at the beginning of the story, it is that Christmas has disappeared. The young boy William finds his dad, who's much older, in, I don't know if it was in a dream or he'd gone back in time. I couldn't tell in that first scene if it was real or not, but his dad was there, and obviously his dad loves Christmas, and I think his dad was basically homeless at the beginning, and realizing that Christmas, his dad's getting told off because he's singing Christmas songs and the police are saying that's illegal and you can't do that. Um, so yeah, it's about saving Christmas, and look at that cover. And I know people have got a lot to say about well-known celebrities bringing out books, and there's so many other authors that need highlighting. But all I can say is I've enjoyed these ones. My daughter loves there's a dinosaur in a book, there's a witch in your book. She loves the there's a such a so in your book series. She also loves the dinosaur that pooped books. At the end of the day, if those ideas are there, to me, she would love those stories, whether it was Tom Fletcher or not. He's got good ideas. I haven't read any of the ones he jointly writes with his wife yet. I think I might like to give those a go. I haven't read any of the Creakers or the Danger Gang or anything like that, but he's clearly got something that appeals to young readers. And like I said, my daughter would read those whether it was him or not. So he's clearly got the ideas there. So yeah, intrigued that these have been turned into musicals and would interested to see how that would turn out. But yeah, he's obviously got the musical prowess because I loved McFly. So there you go. The next one, so that was the end of the Royal Readathon, and then to finish the month off, I read a non-fiction Tap to Tidy by Stacey Solomon. She loves tidying and organising. I love a decluttering book. I'm forever trying to declutter my house. I gave that 4 stars. Was everything I wanted from a decluttering book. Um, the only thing was she did a lot of like recipes and things like that in there, and how she displays lunch for her children and breakfast for her children and recipe ideas. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, mainly because Andy does most of the cooking, and I don't want to learn how to, Sophie eats what she eats and she's happy to do that. I could understand if you've got a fussy eater and you want to do things to encourage them to eat. We've not got that issue in here, so I found myself just skipping past those pages. So that's why it didn't get 5 star, because there was the whole bits in that where I just had to turn the pages because I wasn't interested. The final book I read was Happily Ever After by Kira Cass. I've been reading this for months because I was trying to read a different selection series book a month, and these are the stories that are linked to the first 3 books. So it's just behind the scenes stuff. And little novellas part way through. There's a little bit at the end that the author suggests where she thinks the characters are now. Just enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. This will be winging its way to Becca because she hasn't got it. She's lent it off a friend, and I don't need my copy anymore, so I'll be sending this to Becca. So there you go. 24 books. I gave that 4 stars, and obviously that's a YA. So that's my whistle stop tour. Sorry that there wasn't a lot of detail in parts because some of them I just can't remember anymore. I eventually am going to try and do a vlog style wrap up. I was going to try and do that for this month, and then that just didn't happen because I thought while I'm doing whatever-a-thon, that would be the perfect time to do the vlog style wrap up as I read them. But I think what I'm going to do is as soon as the Indie Accords readathon starts in July, I'm going to vlog that and do a vlog style wrap up of the books that I read. So we'll try it for July and see how we go. I've got much better chance of remembering details instantly after I've read it. I did find an old reading journal of mine from in the loft from like books that I'd read in like 2007, and that's got whole pages where you can write descriptions. And I might have to do that and then just sit here and read my thoughts to you. But we'll see how we go. So yeah, whatever-a-thon this month. I've read 1 book so far for that, which was, what did I read? Well, it was a NetGalley arc for Me and You on Vacation, but then there's a title for it called People We Meet on Vacation, so I'm not really sure which one they're going with. But I managed to get 300 points for whatever-a-thon with that. I am 3/4 of the way through my first Jeffrey Archer book. This is the first thing that I'm crossing off my 21 to read in 2021. Bearing in mind we're halfway through the year now in June. I don't think I'm going to get through all 21 books, but you've got to start somewhere. First Jeffrey Archer, really enjoying it. This won't get as many points for whatever-a-thon because it's not fitting. At least the other one was a contemporary fiction. I'm in camp contemporary. This is not a camp contemporary book. This is a thriller. So I'll get points for different prompts it might fit, although at the minute I'm not really remembering any that it might fit. But at least it's another count towards the page count and another book towards the team's books read. But the front doesn't remind me of a pride flag. Trying to think what else. There isn't any LGBTQ rep in it. Trying to think what the other prompts were. It's not one of the host picks. I don't remember anybody mentioning it on a YouTube channel as one of the faves. I didn't do a poll for it. Do you know what it will fit with? I know what it will fit with. The letter is the start with the letter at the end of the last one I read, because it's ended, the last one finished vacation and then nothing, because I planned it that way. So it'll definitely fit for that one. So there's something, and I should get some points for it. So that's where I'm up to. I'm looking forward to the India Codes readathon in July. I didn't realise that I had at least 4 books on my TBR already that are independently written, so that's great. I have now got Kindle Unlimited for free for 3 months to try, so that's perfect because there's a lot of independent books on there. I will do a TBR for it. I'm contemplating doing Scrabble and India Codes for my TBR game, or just doing just India Codes readathon and just doing a TBR for it. I haven't decided yet. Let me know below, if you get this far in the video, which you would prefer me to do. Would you like me to do Scrabble, where I pick letters, 6 letters, and just pick books that way, and then 4 India Code books, or I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. So thanks for this long ramble. I don't normally go on for 46 minutes, do I? But I will speak to you soon. Bye.